Good evening, everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to create amazing snares to the likes of Culture Shock, Sub Focus, and Metrik. So this is how I learned it. Basically, I found the drums by Metrik. I didn't quite find them. I actually cut them out, and I started to use them as a reference. So there are quite a few people right now who do that, and actually some people are so courageous they outright copy and paste the drums into their songs. One of the guys would be the guy called Method, who made several releases with Liquicity, who just basically copies and pastes Metric's drums into his tracks, and they sound exactly the same. I really do recommend you not do that because, okay, one thing is that producers will not be happy, but the public doesn't care. But your reputation among musicians will someday become public, and then it's not very nice when your song gets released on a good label and then somebody's writing in the comments, oh my god, these drums are cut from Metric song, and it's top comment and everybody knows that suddenly, and you don't have that much, you don't have that big of a fan base anymore. So don't do that. But for experimenting, for referencing, these drums are perfect because they are extremely powerful and they are exactly on this like edge between like super hard drum and bass, like neurofunk kind of drums, and classic modern mainstream drum and bass kind of drums. So yeah, basically there are two ways. You can either download a Metric's Gravity tutorial and cut out the drums out of there, or you can download any of Metric's songs, just basically slice it through AI, which will give you the drum stems, and that's how you can get those drums. This is how I got them. Basically, AI cut it for me, and next thing I would do is I would start playing around with my own drums, doing all I can. I found a sample pack from some Pendulum remix contest many years ago. I downloaded the drums and I started trying to play around using Pendulum and Metrik as a reference, and I'm going to show you a couple of results. So as you will see, the bigger the number, the better the drum loop, but the reason behind that is that I was actually improving. So this was my first drum loop that I made. Once again, if you actually listen to Metric's drum loop, my drum loop doesn't quite stand out. But the more time passed, the more I trained, the better my drums would become. So my next drum loop would sound like this, which is great. I like it until today. Then I started to play around and try and make it a little harder, a little bit more cool. Sounds a little bit more techy. Then I went and did something different. These drums sound more like Matrix and Future Bound, I guess. Very clean, very nice. And then I started playing around, getting a little bit more comfortable with the formula, and I started trying to do something similar to Sub Focus. Here is my first attempt. And here's a more precise version of drums from the track called Illuminate. Sounds exactly the same as it is in original, and it's completely synthesized. There is no AI stuff going on. There is no original samples, anything. Basically how I learned that is through making my own version of Metric's Gravity Snare recipe. And it took a while. I've been basically turning the video on and off, getting back to FL, getting back to the tutorial, back and forth until I figured out what would be the best way to start working with FL Studio, because the flow here is different. So I decided to use Serum for that. And I started, one thing that you really have to pay attention to is that if you want to make a decent snare like this, you really have to respect the snare more than you normally do, because normally you would start a song and you may open a few synths and plugins here and there and start playing around. But with snare, which is that precise and that powerful, you really need to open a separate project and actually experiment with it. This is what I did. You can see there's 5 instances of Serum and like 4 tracks on the mixture just to make this snare work. So it's not very easy. And I'm going to show you how exactly I made this. But first I'm gonna remove all the effects. Actually, not like this. I'm gonna remove them one by one. So we will start by looking into the attack. So here's how it sounds without any effects or anything. Still quite good. So most important thing is the attack, because the way that attack works in those snares, it's kind of different from how it works with other snares. This little like click, it shouldn't be very low. It should be more centered towards like mid-high range. I'm going to open this really cool equalizer on my master channel, which is very nice. Look at this. So you can see that my attack is located between 6,000 and somewhere around 200 hertz. So this is where you have to be very careful, and this is a great reference for you. You can use LFO or envelope to make the attack shorter and punchier. What really works great is 3 milliseconds, because we don't need it to be too sharp. Like a small curve is great. It makes it sound more like polished. Then a short decay. Then here, and the second LFO, I have its destination is coarse pitch, because I want the pitch of the sine wave to go down with an extreme speed. Then of course you have to choose the key, and in this particular scenario I have a, what is it? I guess it's something like that. I don't know. So it's -1 plus 4, and you better use that because it works. So honestly, with those snares, the formula is extremely precise. So do not experiment too much while you're still getting into this, because it's very complex and it has so much going on. You will need time to readjust. Now, I have some noise here. It's just a little bit of noise to enhance the attack. It's nothing special. Then I have my mixture track for snare attack. Just a couple of wave shapers, which are pretty much the same. They add a little bit of saturation and they make the sound louder, and a limiter to make sure that my snare attack is not too loud. There we go. So this way we have a punchy, nice attack. So the next thing we need to take care of is body. Body has to be approximately -1 plus 5 semitones. Also, I don't recommend playing around. You're going to lose a lot of power if you go a few steps up, a few steps down, a few semitones up, a few semitones down. Just keep it as it is. Also, one important note, you have to make sure that your attack and body are both in mono, because that's how they cut through the mix the best. You can see that the body, the way that the body is made is through applying an envelope on the level of these wonderful sine. So it's pretty simple, and you can see that it's punching exactly at 170 to 180 hertz, 180 hertz, yeah. So this is where Metrik's snares mostly punch. What you want to do with this is you want to make a small LFO to make it kind of slightly pitching down, and you want to configure envelope with extreme precision, because if you fail at least by a couple percent, your snare is gonna it's not gonna sound. So if you look at the attack, it's 3 milliseconds attack delay and then 44 milliseconds decay. If you go to body, then I would say that it's comfortably it's probably the best option to have delay not less than 12 milliseconds. In some of my samples, I used like 20 to 25 to 30 milliseconds. It really depends on the relationship between attack and the body, but for attack this short, body of 12 milliseconds and a decay of 76 milliseconds is great, because if you put decay a little bit higher, it turns into crap. So keep it like that, short release, nothing special going on here, and that's what we have. Also pay attention to the balance between the elements. The attack is way louder than the body of the snare. And we're gonna make it up by adding some noise. So it's basic white noise here. LFO2 makes a little bit whoosh on the high end. LFO number 1 is an LFO that is responsible for the loudness of the white noise, which means that we are having a delayed attack. We do that for the purpose of maintaining the most power we can in our attack and our body. We don't want any sounds to conflict with them. Sounds very powerful, yeah? Okay, so now I'm gonna copy this and make another noise. It's exactly the same white noise. I haven't experimented with it. Just slightly different LFO. So this one is delayed. This one is a little bit faster, you can see, and slightly different equalizing here. The pitch is the same, and then there's some, I removed some messy conflicting noise frequencies here, but it's like you probably will have to tweak those little things with equalizer in the polishing stages of your synthesizing. And then the third noise, it's exactly the same. It's also white noise, slightly more low end, slightly faster attack, and that's what we get. So they sound kind of dirty, but that's where we are heading, because these snares actually have kind of dirty noises. We make it a little bit more clean by removing those unnecessary low frequencies from these noise layers in our mixture. Also, I applied a lot of stereo here, and then I put some wave shapers also to saturate the sound a little bit more. Put on the limiter to make sure I can monitor the loudness. And this wonderful Valhalla reverb, which is something that Metrik actually uses, but I use it a little bit differently. So you can check how I use it. Look at this. It has this sandy sound, which I really love so much, so I applied it here. You can pre-delay it a little bit. And now our snare should sound a little something like this. Just too much reverb, right? Too much reverb, right? We don't need that much. Right, now what we can hear is that there's too much attack and not enough body, not enough punch. For that reason, I decided to like glue the samples together on the master track by using wave shaper and a soft clipper and making it slightly louder with my limiter. That's how it sounds. So the sound is pretty good. You can play around a little bit with it. You can change the longevity of the noises, the sound of the noise, and every time you will get a different snare. So this recipe is actually wonderful because you can change sound a little bit and it's going to be a different snare. Look at this. Not necessarily now, but let's change the balance. Also, we can change the decay to be a little shorter. See? We can make attack like a little bit smaller because there's a huge like jump in force during the attack. There's a little bit too much stuff going on the high end of the attack, so look at this. It's all different every single time. You can make a short snare by making the noises shorter, like this, and pitching the noises up a little bit. Sounds great, doesn't it? There's probably a little bit too much reverb, so I'm gonna make it less. Maybe add some more noise. Seems like it wants to be louder in this particular kind of a setting. So not too bad, right? And I'm gonna show you one example where those snares actually work the best. This is the demo that I made. Basically, I saved a couple of snares for myself. You can see this sample pack in the left side. Yeah, I sometimes take them into the project and see which ones are better and use some of those if I'm making mainstream drum and bass. And I'm gonna tell you what, most of them fit from the beginning, but you can make those even better if you play around with extra noise layers. So I'm gonna show you exactly what I mean by showing the demo of a track that I made. So basically the snare right here, it's one of the snares from my sample pack. This is how it sounds. Normally I do adjust those a little bit, even though the snare itself was already like very, very nicely prepared, exactly in the same way as I've shown you before. But I still applied a little bit more wave shaping, a little bit of, equalizing, just to make sure that it matches the requirements of the actual song. So this is how the sample sounds originally. It's a little bit muddy, a little bit sandy. I removed some unnecessary frequencies with parametric equalizer. Makes it a little bit deeper, a little bit more like notch filterish. Some soothe to remove the unnecessary noise. See how much noise it removes? Some more parametric to remove even more unnecessary frequencies. A little bit of Valhalla. And after that, I added a little bit of noise. So you can kind of, all of the snares, which you can make with the snare recipe that I just showed you, you can use them as like a base, like fundamental snare to begin your track with, and then you play around a little bit with equalizing here and there, like adding extra noise like this one here. Look at this. I felt like this was missing in the track, so it sounds even more punchy. So this is how you can create some of the greatest and the most punchy mainstream drum and bass snares out there. I really hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ask me in the commentary section if something goes wrong, because most of the times things will go wrong. It's not very easy to make a snare like that. It will take you a lot of time to a lot of practice, a lot of trying to find the right parameters, because the attack and the decay play, it's kind of tough. But yeah, so I hope this answered some of your questions, and I wish you all good luck in your music endeavors, and yeah, peace.